Welcome to the Alien Invasion number 249, recorded on Thursday, October 4th, 2018. I'm Dave Nelson, along with Mr. Blad Rudbig.
Hadn't thought about changing my name, but I may do that now.
Blad.
Or I might use that as an alias if I check into a hotel and I don't want anyone to know where I am.
All right, Blad. Welcome to the show. On this episode, we learn what happens when you mash up the alien invasion genre with vampires, then throw in some really bad special effects and lots of overacting. It's our look at the 1985 movie Lifeforce, starring Patrick Stewart, although he's not in it as much as I remember, Brad.
Yeah, I seem to have confused it with another movie or fused him from another film into that, because I could have swore that he had a full head of hair. Whether that was, fake or not, I don't recall. But, I'm kind of wondering if maybe I merged Dune with, I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And I thought that he was in a bunch of scenes that I remember when I didn't first see it. When I saw it last time, I seem to remember him being in these scenes that he wasn't in watching it this time. So either both of us traveled to a different dimension or our memory's wrong. There's a dimension out there where Patrick Stewart had a bigger role in Lifeforce.
And that could be.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to it here. Hang on. Let's run down the plot summary, Mr. Ludwig. Lifeforce also starred Steve Railsback as Carlson. They yelled his name a lot for some weird reason.
Yeah, there was a lot of shouting in this film.
Okay, so I looked up Steve Railsback on IMDb, and he did a lot of stuff. He's like one of those guys. Like,
yeah.
Oh, he's that guy that you see in things that you don't know who his name is. Peter Firth, I don't know who he is, but he played Colonel Colin Kane. Colonel Colin Kane.
A lot of alliteration there.
Yeah. Was he the creeper that was tagging along the whole time? Tagging along with Carlson?
That's a good question. I wasn't paying attention to
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Let's continue here. Frank Finley as Dr. Hans Fallada and Matilda May as Space Girl. She did not have a name, so on IMDb, she is known as Space Girl.
Yep.
Was there ever a superhero named Space Girl? Was there ever like a member of the Legion of Superhero called Space Girls? Space Girl?
No.
Okay.
Not that I recall. There was Comet Queen.
Okay. But no Space Girl.
No Space Girl.
It just sounds like a Legion of Superheroes name.
It really does.
All right. So here's what happened in the film. The space shuttle Churchill is assigned to observe the Halley's Comet under the command of Colonel Tom Carlson. Is that going to get old after a while?
No.
Okay.
If you've seen the film, no.
They see a strange form attached to the comet, and Carlson goes with a team to investigate. They find 3 humanoid life forms in caskets, and they bring them to the Churchill, which they had no problem bringing those bodies to the space to their ship. I would have been a little bit hesitant finding an alien ship attached to Halley's Comet, or in the tail of Halley's Comet, with 3 perfectly formed human beings in stasis. Wouldn't that give you pause?
From what we understand, Carlson is somehow drawn to Space Girl.
Oh, that's right.
And so he really kind of looks like he's already under her spell as soon as he sees her. So I think, and he was in charge of the mission, so he made the call, and that's what happened.
I seem to remember one of his underlings saying, "We should get out of here." And he was like, "No, we're not going anywhere." So I think at that point he was under her spell.
Yeah.
And she was using, what do you call it? Not ESP.
Nudity, I think, is
Yeah.
the power you're speaking of, sir.
We'll talk about that in the weirdness section of this podcast tonight. Now, she was using mind control basically to control his actions. So without, even before they got there, I think she was under his control. Or no, he was under her control.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're in Halley's Comet. They're in the alien spaceship. They find the bodies. They bring them back and one of the space bats back to the Churchill. However, Earth loses contact with the shuttle, and Space Research Center sends another spacecraft to search for the Churchill, or no, search the Churchill, because they get into orbit, and the Space Research Center can't get a hold of the Churchill, so they send up another ship. They find the crew dead and the shuttle burnt, and one rescue pod is missing. They bring the humanoids on Earth, and soon Dr. Hans Falada and his team discover that the Space Girl is a sort of vampire that drains the life force, there's your title, from people, transforming them into zombies. When the authorities find that Colonel Tom Carlson has survived, they summon him to explain what happened in the Churchill. Carlson tells an incredible story about the three aliens, and he teams up with Colonel Colin Kane. Yep, I was right. Trying to save mankind from the evil vampires and zombies from space. So you have zombies and vampires in this movie.
Well, they're fusion, I guess, is the best way. We don't want to say that there were zombies and then there were vampires. They were vampires that acted a lot like zombies.
Okay. Let's clarify that.
Yeah, just to be clear.
Okay. And that's before or after they get their life force taken away?
After.
After. Okay. All right. We'll talk about that as well coming up. So there is your synopsis. There's your plot summary right there. Lifeforce 1985. The movie to me seemed like it felt more like a late 70s movie rather than a mid 1980s movie. Did you get that vibe? Did you feel that?
Not entirely.
Okay.
No. To me, it's a quintessential 80s film to me. And I think that's partially because Matilda May kind of got moved into kind of loosely associated with Scream Queens, which was, a lot of the 80s films like actresses like Linnea Quigley. Crap. I had a few others. Of course, I didn't write them down, so they're not here right now. But like Return of the Living Dead. There were movies of that time period where you had a female somebody that ended up very naked and very much a part of the film at some point. And Matilda May, I think because of her character, kind of got shuffled into that category of the Scream Queens.
I'm going to look on her IMDb to see the rest of the films that she was in.
She has done a lot of work since then.
Recently, yeah. Like 2018, she was in this movie or TV show called Access. Mystery at the Opera 2015. A Woman's Revenge TV movie. I'm guessing that's like a...
Yeah, she has 58 credits to her name.
Wow. Holy crap.
And she's got something in post-production right now. It's going to be released in 2019. So
it's probably, besides Patrick Stewart, the person that's gotten the most work since that movie, since Life Force? Guess it.
Were I to hazard a guess, most likely.
Oh, she's done some Spanish, either Spanish or French stuff.
Well, she is from France,
Oh, she
so
is. Okay.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've actually got some. Um, I watched a. Somebody had grabbed a YouTube video of, or a copy of a kind of retrospective, I guess, of Life Force. So I watched that, and I got some facts, and I wrote some of them down.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do that now?
Well, how about we get through our questions,
Okay.
and then we'll get into our impressions, and then uh, based on those impressions, we'll see if what impressions you got from the film match up with some of the interesting facts
Okay.
that go along with that.
Okay. So here is question number 1. Hang on.
Okay.
Here is question number 1. What type of alien were they? Space vampires.
Yeah, there's no other way to really classify it. They were space vampires.
Well, really, they could be called vampires because the theory in the movie is they were the OG vampires. They came to Earth a
Yeah.
long time ago, and they were the vampires of legend. They were the creatures that caused the legend to be born about vampires.
Yes.
So they have all the hallmarks of vampires, except for I think they can be out in the sun, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yes.
did they ever explain the giant bats?
The giant bats.
Yeah, the giant bats in the spaceship.
Oh, I think they loosely did. Now, one of the things that she, Space Girl, Matilda May's character, says is that she took on the form that would be pleasing to Carlson, and that we wouldn't understand what her true form would look like, because I mean, it wouldn't be appealing. It wouldn't do the job that she needed to have done, or her race needed done. So
Oh,
they're able to change their appearance. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe that was their natural form. I mean, the movie was cut down from Toby Hooper's original. I think it was close to 2 hours.
okay.
And they trimmed it back, and there were some things that even Patrick Stewart was disappointed that they cut out. So
I wonder if there is a director's cut out there somewhere.
I don't, actually, there kind of is. There is, and this kind of gets into some of our interesting facts. The American release is the cut version. If you get it on Blu-ray now, you can get the full version.
Oh, okay.
But the VHS version that was originally released was the theatrical US version. And that is the trimmed down bit. But the version that was released in the UK was the full on Toby Hooper vision.
I'm guessing that the extra footage would explain a lot of things.
Because I'm pretty sure, and we'll get into some of the movies that came out at that same time, that may have attributed to some of where it actually kind of fell in the and how much money it made with all these other kind of blockbuster films that came around, in and around it. So,
okay, so next question would be, what was the reason for their invasion? And that's pretty simple to answer. They want the life forces of the human beings to basically reanimate their species, the giant bats aboard the ship inside Halley's Comet, right?
Yeah, because the ship itself, heavy spoiler alert here. if you were going to listen to this and go, gosh, I wonder if I should see it, we're going to tell you everything. Just that if you want to see this film, stop this now and see the film and
Yeah,
then
we're
come back and
assuming that
listen.
you've seen the film or
Yeah.
you don't care and you don't want to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been out for what, 33 years.
Yeah.
So, shame on you. No, the ship essentially has that dish that's that kind of backwards folded up umbrella for the front end of this ship. So it was designed to pop out of Halley's Comet, and because it comes close to the Earth, pull out of the tail of the comet and have things happen so that they will pull the life force out of people, and that life force ends up being translated to the transferred, I guess, to the ship to feed to feed the occupants, because there are thousands of pods on this ship that you get to see briefly at the beginning. There were some things that are unclear, like, the space shuttle goes to the ship. If it hadn't gone to I mean, the ship can come to Earth, but would the pods that we first find, the main three, I guess, space vampire, space girl, and the two space guys, is the ship, does it launch them like torpedoes and then they, somehow come back? We're not sure on that. They're conveyed to Earth through the space shuttle, and the ship is designed to receive this life force energy, but that can't happen until somebody, at least one person, has been infected or had their life force removed from them by one of these three space people. Do you know what I'm saying? Somehow the kernel has to be planted on the Earth for this whole process to happen. So, yeah.
And they never really explained how it would have worked if he hadn't been, spoiler, part space vampire or full space vampire. They didn't really explain that.
She transferred some of her energy to him, and that's how he is like her.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So, she does say, yep, you are like me, but she kind of expands upon that in that, he couldn't pull the life force out of people. But because they can passively draw life force from people. And what she ended up doing, because she was attracted to him, is she ended up kind of commingling her energy, life force energy, with his, and that's why he kind of has some of the abilities that he has, like to be able to see through her eyes and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. You've explained a lot so far, Brad.
I really paid attention.
Good. I'm glad. I'm like half paying attention. Okay.
I made Anessa watch this too.
You know what? We watched this movie for the old podcast, the Sci-Fi Film School, I think.
Okay.
And did Anessa say anything about watching it before,
No.
before at all? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Let's move on with question number 3. What type of technology did they possess, or by what means did they travel the cosmos? And I think we've answered part of that question. They didn't really have much technology besides the ship, as far as I can tell. I think it was a lot more their abilities that they had.
Yeah, and we really don't know how they or the ship got into Halley's Comet. I mean, that's a bit of information we just don't have.
Yeah, and the movie didn't really get bogged down in technobabble. They didn't really
No.
try to make it a sci-fi film. They just kind of let people assume that this is the way how this worked or whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of sci-fi adjacent.
It's in space.
Yep, there's space parts in it, there's aliens in it, and that's about it.
Yep. Okay, if there's a conflict, who won and how do they do it? Well, I think the humans won. I think.
Yeah. Carlson, Gosh, I'm sorry, my got some weird going on with my throat. I apologize.
Okay.
It's Carlson's kind of resolve and his connection to his humanity that ends up saving the day. And Dr. Hans Fallada, who is basically the Von Helsing of this vampire tale, figures out that some of the vampire legends sort of work here. A stake through the heart does not work, but leaded steel through the base of he calls it like the energy center, but basically it's like at the base of the rib cage.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So just underneath where your heart would be, and slightly to the right. That's the focus of energy. And if you stab somebody with leaded steel through that, you'll kill them. You'll destroy them.
And that's what Carlson did with the help of
Doc Colin Kane.
Yeah.
Colonel Kane.
Colonel Colin Kane.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of in there.
Okay, so we answered that question, sort of.
But yeah, essentially, in the point where the space girl is like really heavily making out with Carlson, and Carlson's very much under her spell. Kane calls to him with the like leaded steel sword, and it's enough to kind of break the spell over Carlson, and he ends up catching the sword with one hand while he's in a loving embrace with her and stabbing her basically through the back, through both of the centers of energy of both of them and out his own back.
That took a lot for a person to do. I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. One, to break this kind of mental conditioning that you've had going on. Two, to take your own life. And three, slowly push a sword through the back of some person at an odd angle and through yourself.
Mm-hmm. That was an odd angle.
It's like trying to, and the sword is, it's like an unwieldy kind of a sword, it would be hard to grasp, and even, to try to stab somebody from behind while you're in front of them with this goofy sword. You have to suspend your disbelief to make that work.
Yeah,
you really do.
Plus, the Colonel threw it down through the stream of life forces going up into space.
Yep. And from 15 feet up. So he managed to drop the sword at just and have it fall just right. So Carlson could just kind of one hand snag it out of the air.
Yeah.
So
pretty cool move.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What moral and or philosophical issues were dealt with here? Maybe don't give in to your carnal desires and needs. Don't if a pretty girl, says that she wants you or gives you that come hither look, don't fall for that, because it could be a space vampire.
I kind of wrote, and I posted them on Facebook. Some of the takeaways that I got from the film is there's no truth in beauty. If your boss asks you to come to their office, you say no.
Yep.
Because there's a scene where they go to the prime minister, and the prime minister's like, I'll talk to you in a minute. Secretary, please come here. I need to talk to you for a moment in my office alone. And then the door is left partially open, and they see him sucking her life force out. So they know he's been infected.
And that wasn't suspicious at all.
No, it was like, and he's like sweating bullets, He's like, I don't feel really well. Could you come to my office, secretary? Yeah. Even you, the viewer, like, yeah, get out.
Yeah.
That's not going to end well.
Yeah, she's a goner.
I listed No One Can Say No to a Naked Matilda May,
No.
which really seems to apply in this film, but that kind of goes along with the kind of the sexuality of the vampire. I think that's kind of the carry through of the vampires of lore.
Yeah, it goes all the way back. It's a theme that's been with the vampires ever since the very beginning.
Yes. So, I mean, that while that's kind of tongue in cheek, that's nobody could say no to her. She'd, be able to use her kind of mental powers and overtake you. And, that's how she got free from the space agency in Great Britain. The effects for the space zombie vampires, or the people that have been infected with this vampirism and they need to feed. It's really interesting how they got that effect, because they are incredibly gaunt. They're like emaciated, and the skin is like pulled incredibly tight to the skeletal system.
It's like all your liquid in your body has been sucked out.
Absolutely gone.
Yep.
And to the point where one person who's been infected like totally loses his mind, because there's a 2-hour limit. You have to feed within 2 hours, or what little bit of life force you've taken from somebody else leaves you, and then you become a desiccated corpse. And one guy totally freaked out trying to get to somebody when his 2 hours was up, and ran into a kind of a chain link sort of a fence, and like exploded into dust. It was absolutely crazy. But they got that effect. They made like latex dummies with actual like plastic bones or whatever inside of it, and then they made it airtight, and then they would suck the air out.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they got this. Especially there's one scene where you look at somebody whose 2 hours is up, and he's laying on the ground, and it's like he passes out, and then it leaves him, and he just he just completely, the skin pulls tight.
The effects were either really good or really bad in this film. Like there was some pretty bad stuff, but then there was the thing that you were just explaining, which was awesome.
Yeah. This is at the point where animatronics are starting to be used in films, and especially, I go back to Return of the Living Dead, which I'm trying to think. It was around that time. Maybe it was 86. I don't recall. But they were starting to use animatronics and more complicated puppetry to do some of these things. So it has that look and feel of an 80s film, but the technology of the time, that was actually kind of cutting edge.
Okay, so we have one more question.
Yes.
Were there any inspirations drawn from real life or other fiction? Did this movie inspire others? Well, I think we kind of already answered the inspirations drawn from real life or from other fiction, because this has the hallmarks of every single vampire story that's ever been written, told, put on film, or whatever. I think it's pretty much a straight up vampire story, but the vampires are from space.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's Toby Hooper as a director was influential, but I'm not sure if I don't really have any information on if it inspired other people. How it looked was kind of inspired by Alien. So, I mean, Ridley Scott has kind of an influence in here. From what or am I mixing that with the Relic? That might be the Relic. Sorry.
It's also got a very what's the there's a word for it. Gothic. It's got a very gothic fiction look to it as well.
Yeah, it kind of does. And I think that part of that is the tip of the hat to like Dracula, the actual, you know, Von Helsing, the whole search for Count Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it takes place in England, so there's castles
Yep.
and you know some of that as the backdrop.
Yeah,
So
it
I
wouldn't
would
be as effective if it like took place in New York City or something like that.
not really, no.
All right. That does it for our questions. Let me tap that. And then let's move on to I guess this is kind of our last segment. It's the weirdness of the movie. We're gonna run down. You've got a lot more than I do, so let me get through mine first, and
Yep.
then we'll move on to yours. And I think you've covered some of yours already.
Some of it, yeah.
This movie was very sexual, and any chance they could get, or any chance they got, they showed some nudity. Like I could just see. I didn't see this when it came out in '85, but if a 18-year-old Dave Nelson would have gone to see this in the film, he would have been like, "Oh my God, there's a nude woman right there. This is awesome."
You know, it's weird because she's only really on for about 17 minutes total.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
And the shoot was 120 days and she was naked for 100 of them.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
That was on purpose.
Well, I think part of it, yes. And I think that she had, at least for the US version, and like I said, I haven't seen the version that was released originally in the UK and is available now on Blu-ray. But, you know, they really kept coming back. The MPAA, the people that, you know, give the actual, you know, is it PG-13 or actually at that time it would be PGRXG.
Mhm.
They kept coming back with problems that they had with the film, and some of it was really kind of ridiculous. So it was like they kind of had it out for this film because there was a lot of in-your-face nudity, I think, and with the kind of sexual undertones of a vampire film and what they were attempting to do. A lot of stuff was cut out. So I think, you know, part of her 100 days of nudity got really kind of cut out in the US version.
And it sounds like the director really wanted to make his vision, but he wasn't able to. So his vision probably included a lot more nudity than ended up in the US version.
Possibly, yes.
All right. A lot of yelling in this movie.
Carlson!
There's that one scene where they're on the phone or they're on the radio with the what was his name? I mentioned it at the very top. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Hans Fallada.
Yep.
He was like on the phone or on the radio with those. Oh, they were in the helicopter. Okay, that's what it was. And he kept on saying, "Carlson, you hear me, Carlson? Carlson,
Carlson!"
Let's see, what else do I have? Overacting, a lot of overacting. And then we also touched on this earlier in the podcast. For some reason, the vampires seem to be more like zombies, and that's we already established that they're not actual zombies. They're vampires with zombie characteristics.
Yeah, actually, for our YouTube viewers, I am going to kind of share the screen with you for just a sec and show you. This is what after somebody has been had their life force sucked out, that's what they look like. And that's why we keep saying they look zombie-like, because they just absolutely have no moisture inside of their bodies and their skin is pulled absolutely tight so you can see their organs underneath their rib cage and whatnot. So they've got that loose skin, the really, you know, wrinkly and emaciated face. But the most stunning thing is that the eyes are perfect. The eyes look perfectly wet, perfectly shiny. And the body still moves for that short period of time they've got a time limit that once the emaciation hits and they're looking for life force, then they kind of their eyes open and they immediately look for the first person closest to them that they can suck out their life force. So there you go.
All right. So let's talk about the notes that you put down on our show doc there, buddy.
Okay. In watching this, like I said, Anessa and I watched kind of a history and making of Lifeforce, and Patrick Stewart lists this movie as the first on-screen kiss that he has ever done, or he had ever done.
With a guy.
It was with Carlson. Patrick Stewart plays a psychiatrist who has been asked to look into this and has been seems to be looking at it as a psychological phenomenon and not that, space aliens have infiltrated the earth and are sucking, the life force out of people. But it turns out that Space Girl can, as a part of her abilities, basically possess somebody. And that's what had happened. And with this attraction between Space Girl and Carlson, this kiss ends up taking place. Just because he's so drawn to her and her energy.
Yeah,
so
he kept on seeing her.
Yeah. Yep. Mathilda May was a classically trained dancer in France, and she couldn't speak a lick of English when she did this film.
Okay.
And she had to learn all of her lines phonetically.
Well, not many lines.
No, she did not have a whole lot of lines, but they had a hard time casting Space Girl because of the nudity. And Mathilda May was, understandably nervous, but after a while she just got used to being naked in front of everybody. It was just
yeah, part of the job,
part of that particular gig.
Yeah.
The effects that they did, I spoke a little bit about it with the animatronic, especially with the eyes, some of the more advanced puppetry that they did with this, and the look of the space, the emaciated space zombie vampires is incredibly kind of creepy. Not kind of creepy. It is creepy, but it's really kind of well done. It's, a little dated by today's standards, but at that time it was like really cutting edge. So it was really kind of interesting to see that bit of history. And I'm trying to remember the special effects person that they got, but they worked with Industrial Light and Magic, if I recall. So, I mean, they really, Canon Films, who made this particular film, had done a lot of schlock horror type stuff. But one of the higher ups had read this book, The Space Vampires, which is the what this comes from, and it was the original working title of the film. Had read this and went, "Oh man, this would make a great movie," and it was like his quixotic quest to make this happen. and a lot of hurdles were kind of thrown in the way, and it's really sad. The movie is sort of well reviewed, or at least, for 80s, to me, for 80s standards, it was pretty good. It's now like kind of a cult classic to a certain degree.
Yeah, it is. Definitely.
And like IMDb, we got 6.1 out of 10 stars. Shakespeare it ain't, but for looking at it as a time period piece of 80s film, it's not that bad. It's a pretty interesting film. The issue that they kind of had is around the time of its release, these movies were released at the same time.
Quite the list.
The Goonies.
Not a big movie at all. you know.
Yeah, Cocoon,
Wow.
which destroyed at the box office. St. Elmo's Fire, Pritzi's Honor,
Wow.
and kind of the lowest of the totem here, for sort of upper end, larger budget films was Return to Oz. So, I mean, there was a lot going on right around the time of the release of the film. So it really kind of got buried in the box office, which is a shame. And it almost made back the amount of money that they had initially put into it. They like increased the budget from what they had originally allotted for it. And it's really kind of a shame that it didn't do that well at the box office. So,
All right, there we go. Those are the weirdnesses of this movie.
yep.
Is that a word? Weirdnesses?
Well, yeah, we'll call it a word.
Okay. All right, hang on. Again, my computer, it still won't charge when it's down here, so we got to wrap this up. I got 5% left.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. All right. So, thank you for joining us. Let's see. Hang on 1 second. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Alien Invasion, a Galactic Network podcast. Thank you for joining us for this look at Lifeforce. On the next episode, we'll be discussing our top 4 favorite alien weapons. And I don't think we've touched on this before.
I don't. Yeah.
This could be interesting. And I was thinking about this today. It almost needs to be broken down into types of weapons. Like,
yeah.
Because you look at a movie like Independence Day, and the alien motherships have that huge beam that basically destroys entire cities. But then you can look at like sidearms or something, small arms.
Yeah. Why don't we look at it as like melee weapons, like bladed weapons?
Okay.
Pistols.
Okay.
Rifles or longer ranged guns.
There you go.
Heavy weapons like maybe a bazooka or something that, or a minigun or something like that, a weapon designed to do a lot of damage, but doesn't need to be mounted on something.
Well, what about,
fire?
for example, the Borg, how they assimilate people? That doesn't really fit into any of those categories.
No, I wouldn't include that.
Okay. All right.
And then the fifth and final one will say like ship-based weapons.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. So
okay?
Look for that next time. Yeah, that'll work. Look for that next time. We want to thank a few people before we get out of here, like Monkey Warhol. He gave us the intro song. It's called Alien Syndrome. You can find out more about his music at monkeywarhol.bandcamp.com. Also to Ratward von Dernberg, a composer from Germany, for our closing song called Be Water. Learn more about him and his music at thecaravel.net. That's with a C. And also thanks to Mr. Ben Olson.
Thanks, Ben!
And want to thank him for recording our disclaimer audio at the very start of the episode. His website is benolson.com. Thanks for joining us. Before we get out of here, any final thoughts, Brad?
Chris Evans just said that he finished his last shot as Captain America today.
I saw that. So he's done.
He's done. He's hanging up the shield.
All right. We'll find out how it happens, how it goes down when Avengers 4.
Yeah, Avengers 4
comes out next year. All right. Until next time, you guys have an awesome week, okay?
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I switched it up a little bit. I changed it up. I threw you off, Brad.
A little bit. That's all right.
All right, let me just, before I lose everything, let me just save this. Dun, 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 dun. Save project as. I got to figure out a solution for this because this is ridiculous. I'm thinking about reviving my my Windows machine, my Windows /
What?
Yeah.
Who are you, Dave Nelson?
Just for like recording, and I'll do all the editing and stuff on the Mac still. But hang on one second. Alien number 249. All right, my friend. That was fantastic. And we'll try for next week, but who knows? Something may come up and we'll end up going another 2 weeks.
All right.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Have a great week, man.
Yep, you too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.